Welcome to the Biotech Executive Brief, your daily rundown of the developments shaping artificial intelligence, pharma and life sciences, and the broader business landscape. Each episode focuses on the specific news executives should have on their radar, from AI infrastructure and emerging technologies to clinical development, manufacturing, deal-making, and major shifts across the global economy. If you find these updates useful, subscribe to the Biotech Executive Brief to get daily updates on the industry and stay current on the developments that matter most. Today's brief covers Thursday, August 27th, 2026. Let's start with artificial intelligence, where Nvidia is once again at the center of the story. But this time, it's not just about chips. Nvidia agreed to acquire Hugging Face for $12.9 billion, according to reporting cited in today's brief. That would give Nvidia control of one of the most important open model repositories and developer platforms in AI. Strategically, it would push Nvidia much further beyond hardware. The company already dominates much of the computing infrastructure used to train and run AI models. Hugging Face would give it a much larger position in the software, models, and developer ecosystem, sitting on top of that infrastructure. It's an important example of the AI stack consolidating. Chip companies want software, model developers want chips, and everyone wants access to the developers and enterprises actually deploying AI. Anthropic is thinking about the hardware side of that equation as well. The company explored acquiring AI chip startup MadX for roughly $7 billion before those discussions shifted toward a potential partnership. MadX was founded by former Google TPU engineers and is developing AI hardware as frontier model companies search for ways to manage rapidly rising compute costs. For Anthropic, the interest highlights how strategically important custom silicon is becoming. OpenAI, Google, Amazon, and others are already looking for greater control over their computing infrastructure, and Anthropic appears to be evaluating similar options. Cybersecurity was another major theme today. OpenAI, Anthropic, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, and more than 100 other organizations called for stronger global defenses against AI-enabled cyber attacks. The group is advocating greater threat sharing, defensive use of AI, and coordinated public-private investment. And the concern isn't theoretical. A Russian-speaking ransomware group reportedly used an AI coding assistant to accelerate attacks against at least 7 organizations across multiple countries. Investigators found that the attackers repeatedly reframed malicious requests as security simulations to get around the system's safeguards. Taken together, those two stories show how AI is changing both sides of cybersecurity. Attackers can use AI to increase their speed and capabilities. Defenders can use the same technology to identify threats and respond faster. For enterprises, that means AI adoption and cybersecurity strategy increasingly need to develop together. The infrastructure build-out continues as well. SK Hynix broke ground on a $4 billion advanced chip packaging operation in Indiana. The company expects production to begin in 2029 and believes AI-related memory shortages could persist through 2030. That's important because GPUs are only one part of the AI hardware equation. High bandwidth memory has become another critical component, and supply constraints there can affect the availability and economics of entire AI systems. Investors appear confident that the infrastructure cycle still has room to run. Nvidia shares surged after the company provided a stronger long-term growth outlook and reinforced expectations for continued AI spending. That optimism spread across semiconductor stocks, with demand for Nvidia's upcoming Rubin processors helping ease concerns that hyperscaler capital spending might be slowing. Google, meanwhile, is working on the other side of the AI economics equation. Employees have reportedly begun testing Gemini 3.8 Flash, continuing Google's development of faster and lower-cost models. That category is becoming particularly important for agents and coding applications, where enormous numbers of model calls can make inference cost and latency just as important as raw model capability. AI policy is also becoming an international economic issue. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman and Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang are expected to participate in a technology-focused G20 ministerial meeting in North Carolina. The U.S. plans to advocate international cooperation around emerging technologies while supporting a relatively light-touch approach to AI regulation. And there was one more Hugging Face development today that shows why the company's ecosystem is attracting so much attention. Hugging Face launched MicroDuck, a $399 open-source robot designed for experimentation with reinforcement learning, physical AI, and world models. It may sound like a small hardware launch compared with a nearly $13 billion acquisition, but strategically the idea is interesting. Hugging Face is trying to extend open-source AI from software into robotics, making physical AI experimentation more accessible outside of large research labs. So, across AI today, the industry continues expanding in every direction. Nvidia is moving from chips deeper into models and software. Anthropic is evaluating hardware. SK Hynix is investing billions in memory infrastructure. Google is pushing lower cost models. And cybersecurity is emerging as one of the clearest areas where increasingly capable AI creates both opportunity and risk. Now let's move into pharma and life sciences. The FDA approved Roivant's Lisraya for dermatomyositis, providing a new treatment option for patients with the rare autoimmune condition. The approval also expands Roivant's commercial presence in specialty immunology. Manufacturing was another important theme today. Bristol Myers Squibb's Raise Bio unit plans to invest $173 million in a second radiopharmaceutical manufacturing facility in Indiana. Radiopharmaceuticals require specialized manufacturing and supply chain capabilities, so production capacity is becoming increasingly strategic as more companies build radioligand therapy pipelines. BMS is essentially investing in the infrastructure required to support that portfolio as it matures. Amgen and AstraZeneca also reported positive phase 3 results for Tezspire in eosinophilic esophagitis. The therapy met the objectives of the late-stage study, potentially opening another indication for a biologic already established in respiratory and inflammatory disease. An approval would also increase competition with existing therapies, including Dupixent. We also saw another concrete example of AI moving into drug discovery. Flagship Pioneering's Profound Therapeutics entered a partnership worth up to $35 million with the Gates Foundation to identify biomarkers and therapeutic targets for preeclampsia. Profound plans to combine large-scale proteomics, agentic AI, and laboratory validation. The structure is worth watching because it shows AI operating as part of an integrated scientific workflow rather than as a standalone computational experiment. The company will receive $20 million initially, with another $15 million tied to experimental milestones. In infectious disease, CEPI committed $16.5 million to advance an Ebola vaccine candidate from Egypt's MENA farm. The program specifically targets the Bundibugyo strain involved in the current outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo. That connects directly to an issue we've discussed in recent briefs. Existing Ebola vaccines don't provide a specifically approved option for every viral strain. CEPI's investment is intended to help close that gap. Ozavax is taking a different approach to vaccines. The company acquired rights to influenza vaccine technology that it plans to combine with its existing programs as it pursues a combination shot strategy. Manufacturing capacity is also expanding for genetic medicines. Artis Biosolutions opened a new manufacturing center in Bilbao, Spain, focused on synthetic DNA and mRNA production. That adds CDMO capacity supporting RNA-based therapeutics and other next-generation genetic medicines. In oncology diagnostics, Roche received expanded FDA clearance for tests used to identify patients eligible for Jazz Pharmaceuticals' HER2 targeted cancer therapy, Ziihera. That follows Ziihera's recent expansion into first-line gastric cancer. Companion diagnostics can sometimes receive less attention than the therapy itself, but in biomarker-driven oncology, they are a critical part of commercialization. You need an effective drug, but you also need a reliable way to identify the patients most likely to benefit from it. AI also appeared in another oncology story. Frontier Medicines is planning to move additional candidates into the clinic using an AI-enabled chemoproteomics platform built on 7 years of proprietary data. The company says it has mapped hundreds of millions of compound protein interactions as it attempts to develop medicines against historically difficult-to-drug cancer targets. Frontier is now targeting a development pace approaching 1 new clinical candidate per year. And finally, Moderna and Merck's personalized cancer vaccine provides another example of software becoming deeply integrated with the therapeutic itself. Following the program's successful Phase 3 melanoma study, attention is turning toward the algorithm used to determine the personalized mRNA sequences created for individual patients. If the therapy reaches the market, it could become an important example of a medicine where computational decision-making is an integral part of creating the actual treatment. That's a significant shift. Software in pharma has traditionally supported research, manufacturing, or commercialization. In personalized therapies like this, the algorithm can become part of how the medicine itself is designed for each patient. So across life sciences today, Roivant secured an FDA approval, Bristol Myers Squibb committed another $173 million to radiopharmaceutical manufacturing, Amgen and AstraZeneca delivered a Phase 3 win, and AI is appearing increasingly close to the core scientific product. from Profound's preeclampsia research to Frontier's chemoproteomics platform and Moderna's personalized cancer vaccine. Now let's finish with business, where consumers are giving us a pretty clear signal about value. Dollar General raised its full year sales and earnings outlook after stronger than expected quarterly results. The company is seeing increased traffic as consumers across income groups look for lower cost products. Dollar Tree told a similar story. Second quarter revenue increased 7% to $4.89 billion, beating expectations, and the company increased its full year profit forecast. Together, those results suggest price sensitivity remains an important part of consumer behavior. There was also a major infrastructure investment tied indirectly back to the AI story. Enbridge formed a roughly $1.95 billion joint venture with KKR and Apollo to finance expansion of its West Coast natural gas pipeline system in British Columbia. The projects are being supported by growing LNG exports, but also by increasing energy demand from data centers. That connection is becoming difficult to ignore. AI growth requires chips. Chips require data centers. Data centers require enormous amounts of electricity, and that electricity demand is beginning to influence investment decisions across utilities, pipelines, power generation, and other parts of the energy system. Identity verification company Secure also raised $156 million at a $5.2 billion valuation and acquired fraud and risk automation startup Fravity. Secure plans to integrate AI agents into its RiskOS platform to automate more identity, fraud, and compliance workflows. Marvel provided another strong AI infrastructure read-through. Its data center revenue increased 46% to $2.17 billion, and the company issued an above-consensus outlook supported by demand for custom AI silicon. That reinforces the idea that AI infrastructure spending is benefiting an increasingly broad group of semiconductor companies, not just Nvidia. Outside AI, Deutsche Bank said it is making progress modernizing aging technology across its retail division. The effort is designed to simplify legacy systems and improve efficiency across customer-facing banking operations. Energy markets moved higher as well. Brent crude rose 2.1% to $89.70 per barrel as expectations faded for a renewed US-Iran agreement, restoring some geopolitical risk premium to oil prices. The U.S. labor market, meanwhile, continues showing an unusual combination of stability and sluggishness. Initial unemployment claims declined to 203,000, suggesting layoffs remain relatively low. But hiring is also slower, creating what today's brief describes as a low hiring, low firing environment. Relatively stable for people already employed, but more difficult for those looking for new opportunities. And finally, technology stocks pushed Wall Street higher following strong results from Nvidia and Salesforce. The S&P 500 gained 0.7%, while the Nasdaq rose 1.6%. Once again, enthusiasm around AI growth remains one of the major forces supporting technology valuations. That wraps up the Biotech Executive Brief for Thursday, August 27th, 2026. Across AI, Nvidia's move for Hugging Face could reshape the open model ecosystem, while Anthropic's interest in custom silicon shows frontier model companies looking for greater control of their infrastructure. At the same time, billions of dollars continue flowing into semiconductors and AI infrastructure, while cybersecurity is becoming an increasingly urgent part of the AI conversation. Across pharma and life sciences, Roivant secured a new autoimmune approval, Bristol Myers Squibb expanded radiopharmaceutical manufacturing, Amgen and AstraZeneca reported a Phase 3 win, and AI and computational technologies continue moving closer to the actual design and development of medicines. And across business, value retailers are benefiting from price-conscious consumers. AI is driving investment from semiconductor companies all the way into energy infrastructure, and strong technology earnings continue supporting the broader market. If your organization is navigating AI, digital transformation, manufacturing technology, or technology strategy within life sciences, Sternbridge Technology Consulting helps biotech executives translate emerging technologies and industry developments into practical strategy and execution. Subscribe to the Biotech Executive Brief to stay current on the developments shaping artificial intelligence, pharma and life sciences, and the broader business landscape. Thanks for listening to the Biotech Executive Brief from Sternbridge Technology Consulting.